She sits on display, watched and watching silently, waiting. 123 years have taught her how to wait. Motionless, she bears the reverent scrutiny of those who walk by. Breathless, she listens to the whispered questions and hushed praise. She hears their silent wishes, their secret desire to take her down off display. But she is too old. Not the kind of old that is weak or fragile, but the old that is precious and sets her apart from the others that line the walls and floors of the shop she calls home. Though they too have head badges, theirs are not stamped with the date, December 13th, 1881. Theirs do not bear the name Columbia Expert. They have not seen the things she's seen. Their frames have not yet carried writers the likes of those who loved her. Time has not spent itself in lessons to teach them how to wait. And while the other bicycles are a vital element of the shop, she is a piece of its soul. It has always been that way, except for the 50 years she spent waiting in a basement. This is the story of her waiting and some of what happened in between. She was in a basement when Chris Brown found her. She wasn't lost. The family that owned her knew she was there and cared for her like the family heirloom that she was. She just hadn't yet been introduced to the owner of Brown Cycles, who was in the middle of researching Grand Junction's bicycle shops. It was during that research that he met the Carson family, whose grandfather, Porter Carson, had owned a bicycle shop on Main Street from 1919 to 1953. As Brown interviewed the family, they shared photos with him. One of those old photos was of a high-wheeler, which sparked his interest. He commented on the photo saying, "Cool bike. I wonder whatever happened to it." Imagine his surprise when they answered, "Oh, it's in the basement." To his delight, the family generously offered to display the bike at Brown's Main Street shop and museum, Brown Cycles, and so began a relationship that ended a very long wait. Almost 100 years earlier, she was on display at Porter Carson's bicycle and motorcycle shop. She's managed to keep the years prior to 1919 a secret, though Brown suspects she came from another bike shop and sporting goods store on Main Street called Vorbeck's, which was in business from 1916 to 1930. Carson, seen here standing with her, had worked at Vorbeck's as a repairman in 1916 before he joined the Navy in 1918 and could have acquired her at that time. It would explain why she is seen in this photo bearing the competition's Vorbeck's banner. Although she lived on display at the shop, she was taken out for special occasions such as this one. There were parades, Legion stampedes, bike days, and sometimes special days just meant spending time with special people for no special reason. One of her big days came in 1933, when she and her rider led the procession of bikes and cars that crossed the 5th Street Bridge to mark its grand opening. Ah, now that was a glorious occasion. There were many events and many riders. The paths of 2 of her riders crossed at one of those special events, and a connection was formed that would last many years. To encourage the use of bicycles, which was threatened by the growth of the automobile, a group called the Cycle Trade of America went from school to school promoting a bike day. The events included safety speeches, bike decorating contests, and a plank riding contest. The person who could ride their bike the farthest on a 6-inch plank without falling off would win a $25 gold watch and a new bike. A 16-year-old boy by the name of Henry Patterson won, shattering the old record and riding 10,890 feet. That's over 2 miles. He won the watch, but never saw a new bike. As luck would have it, what happened that day far made up for the non-existent bike. Carson Porter was impressed by the young rider and offered him a job in his bicycle shop. The young Patterson accepted and spent the next 23 years learning the ropes and running the business. With Patterson running the business, Porter Carson was freed up to do other things. He served on the City Council of Grand Junction from 1933 to 1952. He was also mayor from 1946 to 1947. In his memoirs, Henry Patterson writes about Porter Carson saying, "Porter, my boss, became a city council member, and through that, I became well versed on what went on in our city." At times, he was president of the council and had many visits at the shop by people wanting this or that done. I can remember salesmen coming in and offering him bribes to get their companies the bid on something for the city. One man came in and offered quite a sum of money if he could be considered for a liquor license. None of these visits helped, as Porter was very honest and did his best for the city. I especially remember one day when the city manager came in walking faster than usual. He took the boss aside and talked for quite a while. Porter told me after he left that the government wanted the city to help put in something on the old Palmer Park, the land my father had once farmed. They wanted to make what he thought was some kind of an explosive, but they would not tell what kind. They had sold him on the project, and he told Porter that day that he thought the city should do it. And so, it became the uranium mill, where they made the concentrate that eventually was used in the atomic bomb. There I was, sitting on history that was to come later. Although the people of Grand Junction did not know what was being made at the mill, one day they caught a Japanese photographer near the mill before he could take any pictures. Patterson's memoirs talk about many of the local landmarks, including Patterson Road, named after the family property through which it ran, and the little grandstand, which stood where Lincoln Park and Stoker Stadium are today. Located next to the golf course, the grandstand offered a great hiding place for Patterson's homemade extended rake and basket, constructed to retrieve golf balls from the canal. These he sold back to the golf course for 10 cents apiece and served as his introduction to golf, which would turn into a lifetime passion. After years of being too small to compete in any sports, golf fit him to a T. He must not have considered cycling or riding a unicycle worthy of being called a sport, though he was skilled at both. Henry Patterson, or Pat as he preferred, learned much during his years with Carson. Besides being a bicycle shop, Carson's shop was the Harley-Davidson dealership. Patterson fell in love with motorcycles. And developed a reputation with the motorcycle enthusiasts in town. He and his wife Leola became active in the local motorcycle club called the Sunset Riders. After 23 years of working for Carson, who had gradually let him run the shop, Patterson offered to buy the shop. Carson turned him down, and Patterson looked for another shop to purchase. He found one in Topeka, Kansas, and bought it. It remains in the family to this day, run by his son Denny and grandson Mike. Carson must have rubbed off on Patterson, whose customers remember him as an honest gentleman, one who would do the right thing, even if it cost him more. The lives of both men followed similar paths, yet bore the indelible stamp of uniqueness. Two lives, forever joined by their relationship to a high-wheel bicycle. From her perch on the wall at Brown Cycles, she watches time march by to a familiar yet distinct drum. Things happen in this shop much the same as they did a century ago. Tubes need patched, chains need lubed, brakes need adjusted. Kids of all sizes and ages need bikes. Although the technology has changed a little, the dream behind riding a bike is still the same: to go somewhere, anywhere. She is not immune to that drive, and despite the long days, months, and years of waiting, it finally happens. A special occasion, a gloriously special occasion. On Friday, August 15th, 2008, she relives a special occasion from her past. She and her rider, Landon Mulholland, a Brown Cycles employee, lead the way for bikes and cars as they mark the grand opening of the Riverside Parkway, which travels over 5th Street. Crossing right before the bridge she inaugurated 75 years earlier. And so, the past intersects with the present, and she is there both times. The ride is over. She finds herself back home, displayed once again above the other jealous metal steeds. To those who know her, her nickel plate finish seems to glow a little more brightly in the noon light. She sits on display, watched and watching silently, waiting. 123 years have taught her how to wait. Today, she came down off her pedestal, and for a brief moment, she moved by the reverently motionless crowd, her pedals whispering questions as they turned, her wheels spinning in hushed praise. She knows this will not be the last time she has a role in history. History spins full circle, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, and sometimes history spins motionless. And though she waits, today she also reflects. She thinks of former days, of other roads, of previous parades, of children no longer young, yet never old, and she remembers her riders. She ponders the years waiting and the minutes in between, and cannot decide which are more important.